Welcome back to the Value Blueprint, the show where we dig into the ideas, strategies, and real life stories that help leaders design businesses and lives that create lasting value. I'm Shayla, and I'm joined by with Sean Grabowski, an entrepreneur who's passionate about helping people break free from default settings and instead intentionally design success on their own terms. Sean's journey is definitely a fascinating one. He pictured himself running a business, but maybe not stumbling into it quite the way he did. And along that way, discovered the power of mindset, lifestyle design, and building companies that align with what you actually want out of life. So, in this episode, we'll talk about mindset shifts entrepreneurs need most, the practical steps to designing a business that supports your life, how to simplify marketing without overcomplicating it, and maybe even touch on why AI is becoming an exciting tool for creativity and impact. So if you've ever felt like you're running on someone else's playbook instead of your own, you're going to get a lot out of this conversation. And I want to start by just welcoming Sean. Thank you for joining us on the podcast today. And why don't you we'll dive right into it for listeners who might not know yet. Can you just introduce yourself and share a little bit about your journey with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Sean Grabowski. Thanks firstly for having me. I love doing podcasts.
Good, good.
They're always fun conversations. But so my name's Sean Grabowski. I have a marketing agency where we specialize in paid ads in particular. The entire team comes from a background of being really good at running ads for a bunch of companies and working at big high level agencies. So we're quite specialized. That's my main thing. I've dabbled with a few other topics and business attempts, I'll say, and some of them have worked and some of them haven't. I also have a mindfulness business that is kind of slowly being winded down, but it's something that I was really passionate about for a long time. And so that's a little bit about me. I think I got everything there. That's maybe the
You
quick
definitely
rundown.
touched on it. That's a good high level overview of it. Sean, do you want to touch on people how you kind of got into what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got into ads a long time ago. Funny enough, if I were to really go way back, I basically was applying for jobs, getting rejected. I went to business school
Okay.
to Western University and just couldn't get any good jobs at a university. So I did a couple that really weren't aligned. And the jobs I really wanted, which were a little bit of a mix of creativity and business, not quite the finance path or anything, basically marketing roles. I just kept getting shut down. And then a guy was really generous to just give me some feedback that, the people who are getting these jobs are people who they might also don't really have much experience. These are junior roles, but they have experience just from doing things themselves.
Mm.
It's the reality is you can pick up a camera and just get good at shooting and editing. You don't need anyone to pay you to get good at that. You can build websites on your own. You can write on your own. So I just started doing that stuff. And I would happen to be doing that as I tore my ACL and had a pretty big lifestyle change. And I was coping with a really long recovery and basically not being able to snowboard competitively anymore. And it was really a hard, depressing time for me because I'm a really active person. I couldn't even move. And I started writing. I just figured, hey, I'll just do a bunch of things. I'll kind of process this whole thing at the same time as building out a website and writing posts, and ended up getting a bunch of articles published, very surprisingly, on some actual like well-known mindfulness publications. And I got really into mindfulness. It became a really useful tool for me for years and still is today. I
Hmm.
meditated yesterday, for example. And I decided to build a website. That website turned into me getting interested in the internet and building websites and blogging. And that led to an internship. In that internship, I did everything and I ended up, I thought I was really going to be more on the camera side or creative side or something like that. And then I still feel really connected to that. I just kind of was blown away by ads. Like people can
Mm.
put money into this machine and just grow their business. Like that's a crazy skill set. And I just was blown away by the value you can bring and how valuable that can be. And I saw it a little more like a digital trade than all the others. And maybe not all the others, but just to me, I figured that is something that could maybe lead to you can be like very desirable to a lot of companies, whether you're an employee or not.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of reasons for it, but that's kind of what ultimately led me down that path of pursuing ads.
Yeah, it's a very niche, like you said, field, but interesting how you kind of saw that and just took it upon yourself to learn the field and get good at it with repetition and practice. What did you always see yourself owning your own business, or how did that come to be that you actually started a full on agency with it?
That's a good question. You know what? I come from a family where entrepreneurship was never really talked about. So I
Hmm.
didn't really it felt like a pipe dream.
Hmm.
I was pretty inspired by it. You know, I was very fortunate to have some of my best friends be quite rebellious personalities, I guess, who were the type of people who literally were like, I'm not going to go to university or college. I'm just going to start doing my own thing. And they did well. And they're like cinematographers now. And that was a really good influence on me. Basically, I was just fully 9 to 5. I got fortunate and was doing pretty well.
Hmm.
You know, I was running one of the Google Ads teams for one of the biggest telecommunications companies in the world, basically.
Wow.
So got really specialized. That's after several years at agency life, managing lots of other accounts as
Hmm.
well, many for big companies. And I basically got moved or given a promotion, an opportunity to step up into that role. They basically, without going too deep, it was a very well established company, big agency that everyone in marketing has heard of. There's offices in every major city a lot of major cities around the world. And they just created an entirely new agency for this huge telecommunications contract. So it was very much an unorganized, crazy startup that had a too small of a team. And I just one day couldn't take the insanity of it all. I was having bad sleeps. I was working all day up until sleep, which is part of the reason
Hmm.
for that. And I just had to get out of there. It just was toxic and unhealthy for me. So I don't know if I ever would have done this without that push. Like it's a scary, I hate admitting that because I'm so passionate about it now.
Hmm.
But it is something where I kind of just circumstances aligned, and here I am running an agency, and it's grown from one person to basically 9 people, and I love doing this stuff now. It's hard to admit that, but I think I kind of stumbled into it. Maybe I was just the right personality to stumble into it, but yeah, it's kind of a mix of luck and influences around me, etc.
It's amazing how some of those experiences just timing aligns. And even if you're not feeling fully ready, sometimes you just get pushed to make that step forward. And it sounds like instead of falling, you really did keep walking. And it's really interesting to hear now, too, knowing where you've gotten to through that process. What kind of, you mentioned that maybe it wasn't the best working scenario or work culture where you were. What did you bring into your current business that's kind of helped shape you that's different from the previous role that you were in? Because I think the way, knowing a little bit about you and your background, you run your business quite different, and your mindset around running your business and the goals for it is quite different from a lot of people that I talk to. So I kind of want you to share a little bit about that, how you've kind of set it up.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, if I really were to boil it down, way down, um, I think I know my reasons for doing this, and
Hmm.
it's not to build some giant corporate business.
Hmm.
It's to feel free from that. And, you know, we w I think at first, if I really were to be honest, I was the idea of, "Oh, I can just work on a Tuesday night and then take the entire Tuesday off when it's a nice day and just go golfing or something or go on a hike and go surf or whatever." And you know, I'm really inspired by adventure, and my formative years, I was obsessed with snowboarding and had sponsors and was spent all my time basically adventuring and also pursuing this sport. And so I've really lifestyle design is the whole point of all this for me.
Hmm.
And so I don't want this to lock me into, you know, I don't want to get funding or something and then basically be in a 9 to 5 again, owing my time to my investors. I don't want to, um, I don't even really do that with our team. It's a lot of the work is if you can get it done and you can get it done well,
Hmm.
then that's the output. I care
Hmm.
about standards for our clients. I'm not just going to make you sit there and be online just chipping away at stuff randomly. So, yeah, I think I don't know if I'm answering the question directly, but I feel like what inspires me is lifestyle design. That's what excites me. I did this to be free from all that, and I think I built the entire company around that type of an ethos.
And I think that's really inspiring, one, and also something a lot of entrepreneurs go into running a business thinking like, oh, I'm going to have this balance, I'm going to have this. And then they get consumed in that kind of chase for money and scale at all costs. And they forget those reasons why they first started it. And, with Value Driver, we see clients coming to us once they've hit that point again, being like, how did I get here? How am I working 80 hours a week and not necessarily seeing the results from it? My team's burnt out, no one's aligned. Like, what's going on here? What were some of those first steps that you took as a business owner in setting up your company to make sure that you really kept that front of mind? Or what are some things that you did personally to make sure that stays front of mind?
Yeah, you know what? The first thing I'll do before I explain that is admit that I haven't done it perfectly at times.
Sure,
I've lost track of that too, and kind
of
of
course.
realized like I'm super burnt out. I feel like shit all the time.
Hmm.
I've been through those stages, and those are all learning phases for me. Um, and so though I think in those moments where I'll be honest, when I was doing that, I would get to points where I'm like, why am I doing this? I hate this.
Yeah.
But for me, it's so cliche. There's all these books about you need to have your big why. Like, what is
Hmm.
the why of why you're all doing it? My why is so clear.
Hmm.
To me, it's freedom. And it's also freedom from having my time locked in as well.
Hmm.
And so I've had those moments and I've just kind of remembered like, I do want to do this long term. I'm okay with it. But really zooming out on like the actual aspects of what I did in those moments when things were broken and I was working too much and burnt out. This, plays into what you're doing with Value Driver, and it's systematized things. It's
Hmm.
basically things are chaotic because you are understaffed or you're missing something.
Hmm.
Things don't have to be messy like that. As things are in systems, then you can also put somebody else in charge of that system, but it has
Hmm.
to be in a system first, right? So really having that systems mindset, and I'm not even here trying to just promote Value Driver at all. It's just the reality.
Yeah.
The deeper I've got into
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, if you're growing a business, that's what it is. You go, okay, how do we do this? How do I organize how we're going to do this? And then once it's organized, then you can find a solution. You can go, okay, well, there's external contractors I can get to do this, and I'll just give them this process. And then you just are monitoring the process instead of doing it, and you save 90% of the time. So that really, truthfully, has been the answer. And I think also scarcity mindset a little bit. I talk about mindset a lot. I know we talked about it, but scarcity mindset, you can easily be looking at your income and be like, I need all of this. I can't
Hmm.
hire anyone else. But you can never get past that level of income unless you solve that problem. And you need to give up scarcity mindset. Like revenue and money flowing through a business is this like energy exchange, and you need to like free the pathways to make it flow smoothly instead of you just grinding all the time and everything relying on everything being carried on your shoulders.
Well, and I feel like you of all people to really understand that based on the business you're in, where people come to you because they need more clients, they need to grow their business, they need to see a return on their investment. But in order to get that, they have to invest something first to see it. And so I'm sure that's also had an influence for you where okay, something's going on. There's a block here. Maybe I need to hire on a teammate. Maybe I need to offsource something. Maybe I need to look at implementing a better system. It's going to come at a cost, but within X amount of time, you're going to see that return on your investment. But for a lot of business owners, that's scary. They're like, what can I do now that won't cost me anything?
Yeah, for sure. Scarcity mindset is so programmed into us,
Hmm.
but you really have to let go of it if you want to grow a big, I shouldn't say big, just a business that functions and isn't a headache for you.
Right.
And that's what we're all trying to do at the end of the day.
And I think it also like going back to your point about kind of like, building a business where you can have the freedom and flexibility to live the other part of the lifestyle that you want is it almost feels contradictory to have to establish all these regimented systems and procedures in place so that you can be like wild and free and do all these things. Like, I think that's the part that people miss. They think like, oh, well, I want to have this balanced lifestyle. I want to go, run a successful business and then be in Thailand 3 months of the year. That comes with a cost as well of making sure that the time that you are spending on your business is structured and it is efficient.
Yeah, for sure. You know,
What
it's
is
funny. It's funny how much resistance people have. I was talking to a friend of mine who has a small business, and they're like struggling to grow it and whatnot, and they have no systems at all. And I was like,
Mhm,
guys, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm like know all the answers, but
of course.
you have just when you go to hire someone, you have to do every little step manually every time, and it's what a high turnover business. So
Mhm.
what if you just created a process for that? Like then at least the work you do will be 50%, 70% shorter because you just have it organized. Like it takes one intentional time to do that. You can improve processes over time and you should, but you know, I get a lot of resistance. You hear a lot of resistance from people with that, but that's the reality. You talk to everyone who's truly like a singular entrepreneur. Like I feel like individual entrepreneurs just there's no way they could do it without systems. So you talk to individual entrepreneurs who haven't taken any funding, they all will tell you it's through systems. All of them. Almost always. At least if they have a team.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a good point to make, and I really appreciate you kind of sharing that piece of the business because I think sometimes too we see the outcome of what people have been able to grow or scale or produce, and we forget all these journeys that get them to that point, and the ups and downs. And like you said, you don't have it perfect, none of us do, but learning kind of through how you've gotten to where you are now, I think can be quite inspiring to people who are kind of in the weeds at the moment. Now, I do want to shift gears a little bit because you have, I think, such a great depth of knowledge in kind of ad space and marketing. And I want to kind of give our listeners a little taste of that and a little bit more about kind of what you do from a professional lens. So let's just start with kind of the reality of it. Like a lot of entrepreneurs get overwhelmed when it comes to marketing and ads. They hear it, they feel like they need to do it, they don't understand it. From your perspective, what do they get wrong and what's kind of like a lot of the what's the word I'm looking for, misconception around this space for you that you get with business owners?
Yeah, I think rightfully so. It's a technical field. If you don't
Mhm,
know digital and you don't know conversion tags and, terminology around that, it's going to be confusing.
mhm,
I think one thing the most common misconception is maybe that you're just throwing money into the darkness. If that's the case, you're just doing it wrong or you have somebody who's not doing it at a very sophisticated level. The beauty of digital ads, we run ads on Google, YouTube, Bing, Facebook, or Meta, Instagram, whatever you want to call it. They're all the same platform for advertising. We run ads in all those places for lots of different companies. And they work for lots of different company types, but they're 100% measurable. It is possible to measure every aspect of it if you have the right tools in place. At the very least, you should be able to measure, 75% of what's going on. So, what you're doing if you're throwing money into the darkness is you're just not setting up something that could give you literally detailed information about exactly what's working, exactly how much it's working. And if you
mhm,
just pretend you know, you mentioned that a lot of people who listen to this show might be in the construction space, one of
mhm,
the industries you mentioned.
mhm,
Let's just pretend that you have three different crews framing homes and they all start at the exact same time and you just wait and see who's the most efficient. It's going to be obvious, right? You're measuring it. These guys are done the home several days before the other teams. That's the same thing is basically done with ads. We can run keywords on Google Ads, we can target the things people are looking up and track exactly how many people are becoming leads from them. And then in a month's time, we have a lot of information about which ads we ran did nothing and which ads drove leads. And then we make educated decisions to lean into the things that were working. So that's probably the biggest misconception I see is that this is Like, you're not paying me to be some person who just tells you things are working or talks to you in language you don't understand.
Mhm.
If you're hiring somebody good, you're just talking about the numbers. The numbers are
Mhm.
the numbers. I can't fudge the numbers. Like, literally, they're going to be in the account. So it just comes down to a collaborative effort of us going, okay, what kind of leads are you getting? Are they good? Are they bad?
Mhm.
What can we do to change it? These ads are working better than those. Can you get more pictures like that so that we can edit new ads that look like that? Everything is based off data. And that's powerful, right? If you do things based off assumptions or what some guy you met at a networking event said worked for him,
Mhm.
you're guessing. And that's why nowadays people say, well, I've heard it in a bunch of different business books, et cetera. Data is more valuable than gold. And it
Mhm.
is.
Mhm.
That's how big companies are getting rich and making millions of dollars. It's because they know exactly what works and they just do more of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I'm very analytical. I love numbers, love a spreadsheet, love to see what's happening. And I feel like somehow in this world, it has gotten a little bit muddled, but also it's just people not knowing, or like you said, working with people that maybe are kind of trying to make it go, but aren't relying on the data to push campaigns and push results for them. If you were kind of advising a small business today, what would you say is kind of the simplest, most effective way to approach these marketing strategies without overcomplicating it too much?
Yeah, great question. I think the one, and this is maybe could be lumped in with the other question, is kind of like a half answer to both. But
Mhm.
where do your people hang out and what are they looking for? And by people, I mean your clientele. I think this is something a lot of people get wrong.
Mhm.
Is to a perfect example. We were talking about just before this, just chatting about industrial companies, and I love
Mhm.
running ads for industrial companies. The example I threw out was a hydraulic repair company. We
Mhm.
have a client who's a big hydraulic repair company, and they just where do people find hydraulic repair companies? They don't go to Instagram for that, right?
Right.
You also don't you don't just you don't just like remember when your hydraulic's broken. Oh yeah, I saw this post of a hydraulic repair company on Instagram.
Yeah, or like the trending TikTok dance.
Exactly. So it's like who, when your clients are looking for your service, what is the mindset that they're in
Mhm.
and where do they find their solution?
Mm.
And, this concept I've heard about a bunch lately is noise versus signal,
Mm.
where it's like, what really, like signal is what really matters and what actually will change the bottom line. And signal is just everything else.
Right.
Or sorry, noise is everything
Noise.
else.
Yeah.
And signal is what matters. And so it's like a lot of companies spend tons of time on their Instagram pages. It's like
Mhm.
maybe throw a photo every now and again, but if your clients don't find you there, hang out where they find people. Like try and get tons of reviews on your Google My Business if you're a business that's more search oriented, where people look you up online. Or if you're advertising and people will be paying videographers or photographers to shoot photos for them so they can post on their Instagram. And they're like, you know, again, like they're like a landscaping company. You might get a little bit of business from Instagram, but people go to Google to look up landscapers. That's how they
Mhm.
find it in the moment. That's how most people will find it. So hang out where you're just, if you have limited amount of time, don't invest in channels that you don't know people hang out on, you
Right.
know,
Or
invest your
that you
time
can't
in
track the data for too.
that too. Ideally track everything you can. That might be another simple thing.
Yeah. And I'm curious, I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit here. How is all this changing right now with AI and, like people using ChatGPT as kind of their main go-to search engine, really, if you would? How are you finding that and how are you kind of adapting with that as well?
Yeah. So that's a good question. Um, So we aren't too impacted by it yet.
Mhm.
I'll be totally honest with you. My mindfulness business website is dramatically impacted by that.
Mm.
And here's why. It's because if you look at it this way, if somebody's looking up a landscaping company, they're still going to end up most likely on Google, literally clicking on an ad or a listing of some kind. So that is where people still find those things most of the time. Um, it's the more my mindfulness site generates leads for mindfulness retreats that we then get a commission on for the companies that provide them. And I was planning on launching some new products there because our organic web traffic was very high and it was getting better and better. But as ChatGPT came in and Google Gemini, summarizing things at the top of Google,
Hmm.
our traffic came from people looking up generic, like research based terms, like how do you do a meta meditation? Or how do you do a meditation to get better sleep? It's research based stuff that has really been impacted by AI right now because like they're not looking for the end result of some kind of purchase item. So they're just trying to learn. So it's a lot easier to just go to ChatGPT and interact with it to learn. It's really good for that. It's a little bit harder to go to ChatGPT and just look up client list accounts or sorry, business listings. So those businesses that are more research based have really been affected. Their web traffic has gone down a lot. Our agency, for example, we're getting leads through ChatGPT. Um, so I think if you really boil it down, in comparison to our work and ads, Google still dominates. Like
Hmm.
Google still has like 97% of the market. Like I think it's only lost like 3% of the market share so far.
Wow.
It's pretty low. It is climbing with every passing month, but it's still pretty low for people actually coming to Google to find business information. So our Google ad campaigns we're running for clients haven't changed that much. We haven't seen a like big impact or huge drop. Like there's been a lot of fear posts about it on the business forums and communities, but it is changing a lot. The way people find things is going to be slowly shifting more and more into AI. And that I think is, I don't want to confuse the viewers or anything, but we do paid ads. SEO is how to organically get your website to rank higher in search
Hmm.
engines. Um, there's a lot of panic and people saying SEO is dead because
Mm.
ChatGPT is here and Gemini is here. Everyone's searching on those types of tools now. But SEO really is the same thing as that. That's just a new search engine.
Mm.
So SEO is evolving and it's kind of cool actually. The industry hasn't changed in a long time and now it's changing dramatically. So SEO people are learning how do you make your website rank higher on AI as well.
Hmm.
And it's not that different from just having good SEO. If
Mm.
you're a good searchable business with a strong presence online, which is basically what all the tenets of SEO are trying to accomplish,
Yeah.
then the chatbots are also going to find you and recommend you. It's a
Interesting.
it's a new search engine. It's changing a lot of things in marketing, but as far as it's changing how we do the work for sure. Like we're accelerating and how much we can do in shorter amounts of time.
Hmm.
But all it's done is everyone else is doing it too. So it's not like I can do my job for less time now because we just automate certain things with AI.
Right.
But then the playing field is still even, so that we're doing that just to stay up to date with everyone else. So then
Right.
we just have to reinvest that time into other new school things and how can we stand out, like better web pages, et cetera, et cetera.
I was gonna ask, like, what are some ways that you've incorporated AI into your business that you've seen a big result in or impact having to make it more efficient?
Yeah,
Not to give away all your secrets.
yeah. Well, it'd be pretty hard to give them away because we have our own custom trained GPTs.
Right.
So we've taken like, what has worked for making accounts better in hundreds and hundreds of instances for us, and we've uploaded all that information into ChatGPT and created our ChatGPT a custom GPT, so that we have our own little like help bot almost. We also have that for like writing scripts for ads.
Mm.
There's certain specific business types that we run a lot of scripts for. Some of our bigger clients in the U.S. and it's just literally endless writing of ad scripts. And so we've uploaded all the scripts that have done well and then trained our own little AI on these are the types of scripts that do well. These are the ones that suck. These are what they should never look like. These are the things you should never say in them. This is how long they should be. And then we can go in there with our general idea and tell it to spit out 10 options. And then it kind of takes the sitting around humming and hawing aspect out of it. We can just in 2 minutes have 10 ideas. It's a lot easier You know that saying, good artists, I forget what it is, but great artists copy.
Right.
You can kind of just take those 10 and it's a lot faster to just edit one of those to be even better than it is just sit around and hum and haw for a long time. Those are just some of the ways. AI is built into ad algorithms. So that's one thing is
Hmm.
let's just say that we're running ads for a roofing company. We're getting 30 leads a month. That campaign can learn the difference between all the people who didn't click or who clicked and did nothing and the people, those 30 people who actually became a lead. And then you're training that algorithm to learn from those 30 people so that it goes out and tries to show ads to more people like that specifically. Or if three people search and one person's totally wrong, one person's an okay lead, and the third person is exactly like all the others, it will just bid much more high because ads are sold on an auction. So it will bid higher to win that ad or that ad impression. So
Hmm.
AI is actually totally embedded in ad campaigns. And that's been a long time. That's been pre ChatGPT. It's just got a lot smarter. You know, in the last
Hmm.
few years, AI has surged and those algorithms have got a lot smarter. So
Interesting. Well, and
yeah,
like you said too, it is a very technical space. And I think people, unless you've been a business owner trying to run your own ads and, done the little like boosted post on Meta and it starts asking you all these questions, you maybe don't understand like how complex it truly is to run a good ad campaign. So it's interesting that you mentioned too, like these things have been there the last while. It's just that people are more aware maybe of some of the underlying factors to some of these things that they weren't as much aware of before because it just wasn't something of interest or something that they knew much of.
for a
Yeah, yeah.
while there, we would always get asked, "How are you using AI in ads? How are you using like?" You'd meet the odd business owner who just cares about whoever he's hiring or whoever she's hiring being up to date. And it's like we've always been using it in ads, like literally
Right.
since like 2019, or 2018. But anyways, yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, that's so interesting. I really appreciate you sharing a bit more about that because, like I said, I think it's something that, a lot of people are asking, but they don't maybe know exactly the questions to ask about it either because we're all just kind of learning as we go through it right now as well. This has been a really great conversation. I'm curious though, jumping kind of back to your journey and how you got here, if you could kind of go back and give yourself a piece of advice or for anyone that's listening that's kind of a little bit inspired by your story or looking for a shift in their own business right now, what would be something that you'd offer as advice or something to lean into or mindset shift that really helped you?
Yeah. Oh man. I'm a mindfulness student.
Hmm.
I like to think of myself as a student of it, but just it might sound corny, but everything is how you show up in the world. And how you show up in the world is through your habits and your the way you think, you know? If you feel like a victim, you're not going to show up and act like you're not and get things done. You know what I mean? There's a lot in your perspective and your perception of everything that makes a huge difference of how you get things done. So, first one I'll say is working on that and your personal growth and knowing how to control yourself in moments of fear and anger and all of that is priceless.
Mm.
The best leaders in the world are all good at socializing. They're social people who can handle interacting with strangers easily, and they can detach from those emotional moments very easily. And that's an art, whether those people are intentionally mindful or not. That's what mindfulness is. It's working on that, being able to detach from something and not take it personally or make it mean anything. That is priceless in business. Like, it is never about you feeling attacked by your employee who didn't do it right. That's a stupid, unproductive way to look at something. It is, okay, this is just not workable. This is a business. This is a logistics operation of things that need to happen for it to be workable. And if it's not workable, it doesn't make sense to have it. So how do we get back to workability? And it's just literally that. It's not a personal thing. Or it shouldn't be taken as a personal thing. As soon as you make it personal and make it about any of those emotions, you're not looking at it. You're not going to have the most productive outcome. So I just think that that's priceless. That allows you to show up in just a logistics, like a more strategic, but not like a negative, aggressive sense. I just mean like you can make the right decision and not be drawn into something based on the way you're feeling. But outside of that, there's several things I would say no. Yeah, I'll just elaborate on that point first. But say no more often. When you're new, you got to say yes a lot. But there are clients with red flags who are just going to hold you, waste your time and waste your resources and waste your energy. And you need to learn how to say no to those. Um, we're not a huge company, but I get messages like every week, people asking me for my time
Mhm.
constantly. Like
Mhm.
a woman from Yelp wants me to hop on an hour-long call with her, and I'm like, "Why?" I am It's not like I said, we're not a huge company. I'm not trying to brag, but like we're a 9-person company. We have we're busy.
Mhm.
And I could say yes to all of those little things, and
Mhm.
then I would be overwhelmed and burnt out. And that I
Mhm.
think is what causes a lot of people to be moving a lot slower than they should. It's that noise versus signal thing. What is noise and what is a signal? Focus on
Mhm.
the things that actually will get you where you want to be and actually contribute to success. And those other things always have to be a second priority. I like talking to people. I like helping businesses that aren't even the right fit for us. I like Sometimes there's small businesses that are so far from the right fit, but I know I can share some tidbits that will literally be super valuable for them. And I like that because I care about people. So I will fit those in when I can, though. I'm not going to take away from the livelihood of our team. Everyone they like support their families with this work and stuff. And that's more important to me than being super burnt out helping people who we just don't have time to.
Yeah.
Saying no to the wrong fit is important. I would also say coaching.
Mm.
Coaching and paying for advice is priceless. You can go and
Mhm.
bash your head against the wall 1,000 times, but if you can learn from other people and get a mentor somehow,
Mhm.
even if it costs a lot of money, you really need to be careful with coaches.
Mhm.
You need to make sure they're the right fit and that they are actually have really good experiences with them. You can skip a lot of steps if you hire someone who has literally knows the answers.
Right.
I've had coaches for 4.5 years up until like 6 months ago,
Mhm.
maybe 3.5 years, but that was priceless and it accelerated things and it helped me work through things. And then the last thing I would just say is probably systems. Like we were talking about, when I first started, I was just freelance consulting.
Mhm.
And I just ran ads and consulted and did hourly work and had like 10 different contract types with people. And the only way I could make more money was to just work more. And I just couldn't figure it out. And I couldn't even figure out the hiring thing. I was hiring people, hiring freelancers to help out and could not figure out any of that. And then I hired a coach who taught me how to make systems and helped me implement them. And there's systems for everything. There's systems for how we hire, there's systems for how we onboard, there's systems for how we onboard new team members versus customers, there's systems for how we offboard,
Mhm.
there's systems for how we optimize. And that is what has allowed us to put other people in charge of those systems. And also for me to be on this podcast and have a sales call after this and all those things. And someone goes, "Hey, Sean, what about this? And what about that?" And I can go, "Yep, yeah, we got a thing for that. Just check this resource out."
Mhm.
Instead of me literally, suddenly it turns into 4 hours of my day gone and I'm working until 10 p.m.
Right.
So yeah, I think those are the big ones. I mean, that list could go on forever.
Yeah.
I've
Those are
learned a
some pretty
lot.
good key ones. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think you really touched on some high level ones and ones that I think will resonate with a lot of people. So thank you for sharing that. And Sean, thank you again for joining me today and sharing your perspective on building business, but also, building a life that's intentional and not just kind of a default. So, a few takeaways that I stood out to me, and I want to just kind of like leave for our listeners to really absorb is, success starts with the mindset, choosing which beliefs to let go of and which ones to build on is key. And then, designing your business to serve your life doesn't require huge changes. It can just start with those small, practical first steps. And last but not least, when it comes to, marketing or even using AI, simplicity and intentionality often win out over the complexity and chasing every new trend. Sean, for those who are listening and who want to get in touch with you, what's the best way that they can find you?
Yeah, I'm quite active on LinkedIn. I don't know if all the listeners here would be on LinkedIn, but you can easily find me there under Sean Grabowski. Also, our website, keepersdigital.com. If you fill out a form there, that's probably the next easiest way. And we do have social profiles elsewhere. We're just a little quieter on them. Um, so those would be, yeah, feel free to reach out to me in either of those two places, and I'm happy to chat with anyone there. And we answer those constantly.
Wonderful. Yeah. So we'll make sure we link those in the show notes so you can stay connected with Sean, explore kind of more of his ideas, and get connected with his team as well. So this has been another episode of the Value Blueprint. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. And remember, your path to success doesn't have to follow default settings. You can design it your way. We'll see you next time. And thanks again for tuning in.